طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the bestower of mercy, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we seek aid in Allah ta'ala, we seek forgiveness from Allah for our sins, and we seek refuge in Allah ta'ala from the evil of our souls and the evil of our actions. I bear witness there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad, our beloved messenger, is the last and final messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam. I'd like to greet all of my brothers and sisters and viewers, inshallah, with the Islamic greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, today, inshallah, we have some esteemed guests with us. Inshallah, we are, I don't know if we can say celebrating, but we are, inshallah, focusing on Islamophobia, as it's an Islamophobia Awareness Month. And inshallah, this is a discussion really led by MEND. And inshallah, we have some panelists and some, inshallah, speakers from MEND that will focus on the work that MEND is doing, inshallah. But we have, inshallah, with us our brother Tauseef Anwar. Tauseef is a community member. His children are part of our community, our Scouts local group at Lewisham Islamic Center. Tauseef by himself is from Pakistan. He studied this famous the Punjab University in Pakistan. You know, the likes, the great individuals like Allama Iqbal graduated from there, rahimahullah. And also he's a counselor in Lewisham Council. In fact, he's a speaker of the council in Lewisham Council. Alhamdulillah, he's like a, you know, one of our leaders and role models within our community. But we also have with us Sister Umay Yahya. Sister Umay is a graduate of law from SOAS. She is in charge or responsible in MEND for the Islamophobia response unit with a wealth of experience and activism. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, it'll be interesting to hear her talk. Also, we have with us Ustad Mustafa Bashir. Mustafa Bashir is a science teacher. He's part of the South London MEND team, in fact, leading that team, part of also An-Najashi Masjid in Wandsworth. So alhamdulillah, I think, you know, great individuals with us, inshallah, and I want to, inshallah, really start with MEND and inshallah take the discussion to Ustad Mustafa and ask Ustad Mustafa, what is MEND doing concerning Islamophobia, and is really Islamophobia something which is really prevalent today, you know, within our communities, inshallah, whether it's nationally or even globally, Ustad Mustafa. So please, Ustad Mustafa, please go ahead, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I'd like to thank Lewisham Center, and I'd like to thank Imam Shakeel for inviting us to speak today. And, you know, it's such an important topic that we've, and I, inshallah, have come from MEND to speak to you guys a little bit about the work that we do, inshallah. If I can just, so you asked me, Imam Shakeel, about MEND, I'll start there. So MEND stands, for those people who don't know, stands for Muslim Engagement and Development. It's a 100% community-funded organization which seeks to empower British Muslims across the UK to tackle Islamophobia. And this really centers around getting involved in media as well as politics. So that's kind of an overview of what MEND does. If I can just tell you a little bit about myself and what I'm here for. So my name is Mustafa Bashir, as you said, and to be honest with you, the only reason why I am here today, and alhamdulillah that we have been given this opportunity to talk today, is because November is a really, really key month, because it's actually Islamophobia Awareness Month. And with that being said, I would like to first define to all of the viewers what we mean when we say Islamophobia. And there are a few different definitions. So I'm going to give you the APPG definition of Islamophobia, which is Islamophobia is rooted in racism, and it's a type of racism that targets expression of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. Now, a little bit of a mouthful. So what I want to do is give you guys the analogy that you probably are familiar with, which is the idea of an iceberg. And when people think of Islamophobia, we often think about hate crime, whether it's verbal or physical, but that's actually just the tip of the iceberg. That's just what we see at the top or above the surface of the water. But beneath that, we've got, you know, greater issues such as discrimination, exclusion, stereotyping, structural Islamophobia. So for those people who maybe have a background in academia, you would be aware of structural racism and how significant that is compared to some of the things that are kind of blatant in society. And that's kind of the way I would like you guys to think about Islamophobia. So what we're really saying is that Islamophobia is something which can affect us or affects our lives, all areas of our lives. With that being said, I want you guys to get an idea of what Islamophobia looks like. So if you please allow me, I'll give you some examples of what we see in society when it comes to Islamophobia. And first of all, if we think about Islamophobia in the media itself, there's, first of all, lots and lots of examples of Islamophobia in the social media, because that's where people are turning to. So between, and I hope you can guys keep up with the statistics. I'm really sorry if I flood you with it. But between March 2016 to March 2017, there was 143,920 tweets that were sent from the UK that are considered to be derogatory and anti-Islamic. If you're thinking, okay, what does that look like on a daily basis? That means 393 tweets per day. So it's something that's quite huge. And that's just kind of social media. And when it comes to mainstream media, there is, for every one moderate Muslim mentioned in the press, there are 21 references to extremist Muslims. So that is what the public is being fed. That's what they're being kind of exposed to. But it doesn't, just stop there. We can even think about the workplace. So people submitting CVs, Muslim sounding names, like all of our panels today, or Mohammad, etc. These names are 3 times less likely to get a job interview. And this was a study that was carried out, so they've got evidence of this to show this. So it is a serious issue. And not just that, but it's really, really sad when children themselves are affected. So an example of Islamophobia that affects children is Childline recorded a 69% increase in racist bullying in playgrounds, with the common terms being used are bomber and terrorist. So it's really, really shocking, and I'll leave that to you guys to think about. And that means that as we've got our sister, mashallah, she'll tell you a little bit more, Sister Umayya, when it comes to reports. But I can tell you guys that there is 8,336 religiously motivated hate crime incidents. And these were just recorded in England and Wales during 2017 and 2018. And what that means is that it's gone up now by 40%, and it continues to rise, and that's the alarming thing. In recent years, 52% of these attacks have been against Muslims. So it's blatant, and it's something that we need to tackle. To be quite frank, it's something that is quite urgent, and it's something that we need to tackle, because when it's not dealt with, what we see happening is things like, everybody's aware of the Christchurch incident. And what I want you guys to think about, so in the Christchurch, there was 51 people killed. And that's not mentioning what happens to them in terms of the traumatic experience and what that's caused to all the people that witnessed it and so on. And with this example, the gunman, the person who carried out this vicious attack, the news covered a lot about him. So one of the things that we learned about him is his motivation, and he showed some pride in his action. And I just want to bring the audience's attention to his motivation, which was, according to him, the reason why this person carried out this attack was because he believed the Islamophobia rhetoric that is in the media, and that was the cause of concern for many people. So now, just to kind of finish off, I want to give you guys a few action points for people to take away. So number one, I would say for everybody, young, old, regardless of your career and what you decide to do, everybody should work to kind of raise awareness. And I don't mean it as, you know, something that is difficult. It's really, really easy. Just first of all, it's really, really easy for you to download the Mend app, which is available in Apple Store, Android, etc. And in that, you can see lots of the events that are taking place, read the articles, you know, find out what's happening in the news surrounding this issue, and keep yourself informed. And the second thing that I would say is, alhamdulillah, we've got counselors like our brother here, and some of the people that were mentioned on the poster that we're attending. There are many counselors who are committed to tackling this issue of Islamophobia, and a lot of work is being done. But it's down to us as a community to become engaged with them, and, you know, to connect with our counselors, to see what we can do, to see what contribution we can bring, if it's just voicing something. And also, as I said, it's Islamophobia Awareness Month. So if you visit the website islamophobia-awareness.org, you'll find lots of information. Not only that, but all of the events like this one that Lewisham Islamic Center is hosting are virtual, and they are easily accessible. And there's something that I would really encourage you guys to look at, which is the virtual exhibition. That is really, really important, and it's very, very informative and useful. And you know, that's where I want to kind of leave it in terms of actions. So raising awareness, everybody downloading the Mend app, really, really easy, really, really useful. Second thing, as I mentioned, Islamophobia Awareness Month, and getting involved. And thirdly, connecting with our counselors. If you want to go a step further, sorry, Imam Shakeel, I'll finish off with this. I'm sorry I've taken so much time. If you want to get involved further, please visit men.org.uk/volunteer. And volunteering is really easy. Just sign up, you say what you do, what you want to get involved with, and, you know, we will kind of get you connected with somebody that can help you with your wishes. I myself did not know anything about politics. I'm still very ignorant when it comes to it. I was not very active in the community, and there's still more work to be done. But I volunteered about a year ago, you know, and at the time I knew nothing of these issues. But, you know, alhamdulillah, now I'm here on this panel speaking to you. So it's very, very doable. That's where I'll leave it. Thank you, guys.
Barakallah Feek, Ustad Mustafa, very interesting. And I'm sure this is some of the viewers, in fact myself, I have some questions, inshallah, which we'll leave to the end, inshallah. Sister Umayya, I did mention, inshallah, for you to come on board after Ustad Mustafa and CRP. But I think because he mentioned about counselors, let us, inshallah, just go to our brother Ustad Tauseef. Ustad Tauseef, as I mentioned, is a counselor at Lewisham Council. In fact, he's a speaker. I think it will be interesting, Tauseef Bhai, to hear your take on Islamophobia, but also as a counselor, what you are doing specifically, and, you know, how does political participation really have a positive impact in tackling Islamophobia? So please, Ustad Tauseef, we'll pass it to you, please, inshallah.
Thank you, Imam Shakeel. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm not Ustaz, but thank you for upgrading. Okay, thanks for inviting, and I really appreciate the work which MEND is doing on Islamophobia, especially this Muslim Awareness Month. Recently, they are doing a lot of work in it, and I have added my support in their counselor network in that. I mean, I would like to add first thing in that is this, I mean, I will take the example from this Black Lives Matter movement, and especially the Black History Month this year. There was a take that it's not about a month only, and a Greenwich Council, I mean, I really like their logo of this Black History Month. It's called a Black History 365. I think same in Islamic Awareness Month. It's a more than, I mean, I appreciate what they're doing, but it's a more than a month. It's a constant engagement, sending a message across that Islam is not what media tells you, and the stereotype and misconception about Muslim men, women, young people, and alienating the Muslim community on its own. So it's maybe a constant battle which we have to, and our community and our organization has to go. now coming to Islamophobia or rhetoric about Muslim community. Is that really a problem of the Britain, or it's a global issue? And I think Imam Shakeel has mentioned in start, it is kind of a global issue, and especially a substantial rise in xenophobic, far-right racism and Islamophobia in the part of the world we know today as a West. But sadly, looking at the reaction from the Muslim leaders in the world, it's not that much. But what we expected from the leader of the Muslim world. I mean, except 3 countries, actually. I mean, I'm not being a bias that I'm Pakistani either. The Prime Minister of Pakistan and the Malaysia and Turkey, they have joined hand together. They say, oh, we need to do something to tackle the Islamophobia in the world. And they said, we are launching a joint TV together to tell the world what Islam is about. And it's not what you hear from here and there and the far right leaders. I mean, it was again a backlash. One of the friend country of Pakistan, Muslim country, they said, give our $1 billion back. But I think you are making a new block in Islamic world. And of course, there's some other issues because I think they want Pakistan to step down from a Kashmir issue also, but that's a different politics of the world. We can have another debate on that issue. And now coming to a topic, is that really an individual behavior? Because first we need to understand the Islamophobia. So is that really some ill-informed people? Is just their behavior? Is some collective behavior and organizational and institutional racism? And I mean, I will call it a part of institutional racism, but yes, it is a collective behavior. Firstly, our media. So media contributes a fair bit that tell people the fear of Islam to a modern world, and they are mastering and twisting the stories and making Islam as a kind of a bad religion for Western world. Some leaders, then second aspect, the leader of the world. I mean, we have a recent example of the French president. In past, we have a British leader, we have a president of US, Indian prime minister, and some other European leaders. So when the leaders say something that impacts a lot of a community, I mean, their own population, and that builds up the people's momentum. Yes, if our leader is saying that, it means there is a problem somewhere. So that's the second aspect. Thirdly, yes, institutional is part of the institutional racism, and there are many institutes which are under the influence of Islamophobia and racism. Like I clearly say, openly say, our Home Office has a lot of aspects which are a part of racism and xenophobic policies, and some institute, I would say, like Equality and Human Rights Commission. So they just in May, they rejected actually to investigate in one of the political party complaints of Islamophobia. They said they think there's no need of it. And there's a survey called Hope Not Hate by YouGov. It suggests 60% of members of that party think Islam is a generally threat to a Western civilization. And 54% of them, they believe that Islam is a threat to a British way of life. And they think there's no, I mean, there's even a Lord, even a member of the House of Lords in their own party have got a bundle of evidence. And she's saying there is a lot more Islamophobia in a Tory party than generally. I should not say the name of the party, I'm sorry, but it's a mask. I sometimes when you're talking, so you can just ignore. There is then in the normal society. So these are the aspects that there is a lot actually in institutional wise. We see that's going on, and that's also need to be challenged. But that's of course an individual cannot challenge that. So this has to be challenged collectively and by organizations. So now coming to the point, what we can do on individual level or on organization level. So my first point is to our community, whoever is listening today. I mean, it's sad we can't have this event in a mosque and more people can listen. I mean, we shouldn't be complacent about it. So people need to challenge it there and then. If they think they are victim of hate due to their religion, due to beard, due to abaya, niqab, hijab, wherever, just challenge it there and then. And we as a Muslim leaders, local leader or wherever, we are there for them to support. I mean, we have some extraordinary work from Imam, which they are doing. People can report there with confidence, tell their stories. We have an example of the Lewisham Islamic Center. They challenge some Islam media mafia, I would say, the Daily Mail and the Time, and they won that battle. And that is the clear example. If you challenge it there and then, you will be winning this war. So if you say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's just a one-off incident, it happens, just let it go. I mean, I'm as a father also very much concerned if the which society my kids are growing up. They should not be growing up in a society where there will be a subject to a hate. Even sometimes you don't have to challenge in with different ways. Sometimes a simple conversation can change people's mind. I have a conversation, I mean, many times I had a conversation with the people where they say, oh, we didn't know about that in Islam. We thought you were like that. And I said, well, that's not what you thought, that Islam or a Muslim man is coming on the back of a camel and have a sword in his hand and have a 6, 7 wives on his back. And it's not. I mean, we are very much incompatible to live with the whole world in a peace and harmony with the people of the different belief and people with the no belief. Secondly, we need to harness this opportunity because there is a large majority of the non-Muslims who are also very much against Islamophobia and any kind of racism, I would say. But they are not Muslim. I mean, I have an example seeing here in when there was an attack on the Christchurch in New Zealand. We have a more non-Muslim gathered in front of the mosque to show their solidarity than actually a Muslim. So we have a lot of Najashi within our community who are not a Muslim by themselves, but they are there to support. We need to be positively engaged with those people, use those opportunities to make a bigger impact. And the pressure, I can give you an example of the people, how they use it, but of course, that's not a topic to discuss today. I mean, there are even, I mean, this is sad, there are even non-Muslim who are victim of Islamophobia. Some of the leaders, I don't want to name it, because they stood for Kashmir, they stood for Palestine, there is strong support for Palestine. And they stand, whenever they mention any kind of racism, they mention Islamophobia, and they have been victim of Islamophobia because the people think, oh, he's a very supportive of Islamophobia. Let's attack them in a different way. Most of you would know, but anyway. So that is another thing. We need to engage with those people and really harness those opportunities there. And lastly, I would come to solution or advice to our community that we need to be more actively involved and be encouraging individual to organization like a Men MP AC UK, and there is many other organizations also which may be not a Muslim organization like a Stand Up to Racism, and those organizations who are really playing a big role in society and to doing the work about against any kind of racism. We need to support these organizations because they are working on front line, and we need to be their supportive hand. I mean, one step we can do the things individually. Second, we need to support these organizations who are doing organized work to have watching what is going on the media, playing a role of the whistleblower. This is happening. We need to be standing there. I mean, I can share an example. There was a Black Lives Matter protest, a rally in Hillyfield in Lewisham, and myself and Imam Shakeel both were invited there as a speaker. And trust me, we couldn't find a 5 Muslim in that whole protest. And I think in this point, we need to remember the story of those 3 bulls. If we don't stand up for other fellow human beings who are subject of a racism, tomorrow no one will stand up for us. So that's my message. And on the counselor side, I would say, Imam Shakeel asked, we are very much there. Firstly, our community need to see that we are there. We are in position where we can influence the few things in the society. If they think there is anywhere they need our support, we are always there for them. They shouldn't feel that they are left alone. And I mean, it's not we are not part of a central government. As a councillor, we are more in local government and local services. And we do whatever. This year, we have a Salam event in Lewisham Council, which was the first fantastic event. And first time is an initiative in a Lewisham Council. We had a Salam event. And I mean, in those type of events, we are always open for suggestion. Any event as a speaker and civic mayor of the council, if they want to invite me in any civic events, I can come. That will give our community a little bit of sense of connection that they are on other side in political arena, in local council, they have their stake. So that's what my message is. Thank you very much, Imam Shakeel.
Jazakallah khair, Ustad Tauseef. I think excellent points there. I think three key points I got was, number one, many here within the the UK non-Muslim community, and I think more so us living in Lewisham, we see it even more so on Najashis. They're sympathetic individuals, supportive individuals, and against oppression. So I think that's a key point there. Another key point, Ustad Tauseef, that you mentioned is challenging. Challenging Islamophobia, challenging hate crime, reporting it. And another key point that you mentioned was the story of the three bulls. The Muslim community is not really getting involved in supporting other issues where people are being oppressed, whether it's due to their, the color of their skin and so on. We're not getting involved. So I think that's another key point that we really need to reflect and focus on, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, let us move to our Sister Umay. As I mentioned, Sister Umay is a graduate of law from SOAS. She works for men. She's part of the IRU, Islamophobia Response Unit. Sister Umay would like to hear from you in terms of statistics, and I think you have a presentation prepared. And also, what's the role of the Muslim community concerning Islamophobia? So, inshallah, we'll pass it on to Sister Umay. I think, Brother Cenk, you're going to put the slideshow on for the presentation for Sister Umay, or
if you could just allow me to share my screen. Thank you very much. Bismillah. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Today, I'll be speaking about the Islamophobia Response Unit, which is technically the reactive side to MEND. So as you all possibly know, that the MEND community is broken up into three branches: our policy team, our community, and the IRU. So the IRU is a reactive branch of MEND, and we help to support victims of Islamophobia by offering free legal services. So just a little bit more about the IRU team. So the head of legal is Faisal Mukith, who is a qualified pro bono and employment lawyer who trained at Simmons. My colleague Huda Usman is a hate crime caseworker. She's a criminology graduate, and she has done extensive research on the prevent duty and the impact of Brexit on Muslim students. And then myself, I am the admin assistant and caseworker for the IRU. So just a little bit more about what this presentation will cover briefly is what is the IRU team, how to report a hate crime, tips when reporting to the IRU, statistics, and lastly, case studies. So what is the IRU? So the IRU was founded by MEND in response to the rising anti-Muslim attacks across Europe and the growing tide of anti-Muslim sentiment. It's a one-of-a-kind platform. It's the only one in the UK where we actually provide victims of Islamophobia free legal assistance, emotional support, and referral services. And also with regards to the reports that we receive, we monitor this data and we also use it to build up research and also to support our policy team when it comes to lobbying ministers on key policy changes. So in terms of the way that the IRU is structured, we have 18 qualified legal supervisors who provide as pro bono their support and their supervision when it comes to providing our 23 caseworker volunteers the support they need to then support victims of Islamophobia. Now, how to report a hate crime? There are three different routes that one can take. In a case of emergence, we would always tell the victim to dial 999. When it is an event or an incident that happened after a considerable amount of time, this will be then told to dial 101, or alternatively, you can make an online report to the police. Tips when reporting an incident. Now, unfortunately, as been mentioned today, the cases of Islamophobia are becoming much more prevalent in the UK. So in terms of what I would like to talk about now is the 5 key tips that we always tell clients when they have approached us or what they have done prior to coming to the IRU. Firstly, is evidence. So evidence can be varied. So for example, it was a case of a physical attack where a sister may have been spat on, we would always tell that client to make sure that they circle the area that they have been spat on in case that usually saliva evaporates very quickly, and that makes sure that we still obtain crucial evidence. Another key piece of evidence is if something has happened in a public space. For example, you have been verbally abused or, like I said earlier, physically attacked, you want to make sure that you've looked around in the area to see if there's any CCTV of nearby shops that may have captured the event. But the second tip is record. So we would always tell clients that you should keep a physical record of details of the suspect. So the more detailed, the better. So this includes their age, their ethnicity, their gender. What were they wearing? What kind of physical features were particularly striking that would help to identify the client? Now, witnesses is the third tip. So when it comes to court proceedings, a witness statement is vital in terms of the strength of your case. So we would always tell the client, if you have been a victim of hate crime, if there were any nearby witnesses, a lot of them are very forthcoming in terms of providing support. So you should always try and reach out and see if a witness would be happy to give a statement. Injuries. Now, if you had sustained injuries during a hate crime event, then what we would say again is to keep photographic images of the injuries that you had sustained, which can then be used later on to strengthen your case as evidence. And lastly, harassment. Now, unfortunately, we do have a range of hate crime cases, which I will be discussing a bit more later. And a lot of victims, this isn't the first incident that happened. It's not a standalone event. And in cases of that matter, we would tell them to make sure they log if there've been a number of incidents that have been leading up to this one event, and then we can see how we can build a case surrounding that. Now, how do victims contact the IRU? So there are three main ways that a victim can contact the IRU. And obviously, if you are watching today, then please do keep a note of these three avenues. So the first is our helpline. It's 0203 904 6555. Our online report form, which is www.mend.org.uk. And lastly, our email address, which is iru@mend.org.uk. We also do receive referrals by our regional managers across the UK. So this includes in London, in Midlands, North West, Yorkshire and Humber, and South Wales and West. Now, in terms of our statistics, the IRU had opened in 2017, and to date, we have received 750 reports, 400 being hate crime and 254 being discrimination cases. In terms of the types of cases that we receive, although the IRU only specialize in hate crime and discrimination, there are various subcategories that we also tackle within these key sectors. So with regard to hate crime, this could vary from physical assault, verbal abuse, or criminal damage, or it could be a combination of them all. For example, a case of physical assault could be that a sister has her niqab pulled off, or a brother is randomly attacked where he's beaten black and blue. And these kind of cases are very morbid to discuss, but unfortunately for a lot of people, this could sometimes be an unfortunate event that they have to endure. Another case of criminal damage could be that we do have certain housing cases. As you all know, that due to lockdown, we have had an increase in housing cases where a lot of neighbor disputes have occurred, and things like their garden, their household items have, or even their cars have been damaged, and they've also experienced verbal abuse by their neighbors, where they are called a terrorist, where they are called a letterbox, and all these kind of hateful slurs are being told. With regard to discrimination, again, there's multiple subcategories within discrimination as well. So with regard to the workplace, this can vary from losing out on promotions or having work-class banter, where in the workplace, you may feel that a certain colleague has been victimizing you, and what starts off as a normal complaint can then escalate to a grievance procedure. And then also when things, and this could also include unfair dismissal. With regard to goods and services, goods meaning if you are in a public setting, i.e. a supermarket or a shop, and again, you feel like the treatment that you've been given is, first of all, very unfair and very different, and you feel that it is due to the fact that you are Muslim. And services being public services, for example, we have had a lot of cases recently where bus drivers have been particularly discriminatory against certain sisters for just jumping onto the bus or for literally just taking a fare. Thirdly, we've got the lack of prayer room facilities. This can vary from the employment sector or even the education sector. And lastly, restrictions on Islamic clothing at work and in schools. So right in the PowerPoint, I have mentioned a very key popular case of ours that happened in Greenwich. I know that we are with some of our councillors from Lewisham. Unfortunately, the IU hasn't actually had any case in Lewisham, but we did have one nearby in Greenwich. So this happened in 2018, where a particular educational institution had revoked the Muslim students' right to pray their Jummah prayers on Fridays. Now, this was a very, very peculiar case, given the fact that the school had previously allowed the students, and then they just made the active decision to revoke that and no longer provide their public spaces. So what the IRU did to support the client was, firstly, we advised them to mobilize communal support. So we told the client to get in touch with all the other parents of the school and see what they are feeling about this particular change and mobilize this support together. This in turn would have made their case much more stronger and build much more volume when it comes to then arguing back to the school. And then we also then supported the client by drafting a complaint letter, which alhamdulillah made sure that the client was able to successfully close the case. And now the school does offer prayer spaces for Muslim students during Jummah prayers as well as everyday prayers. Since that case, in 2018, we have had 6 educational cases where, again, it's a very similar context where Muslim students haven't been allowed the right to pray freely during their school hours. So it just goes to show a little bit more about what we do as a unit and the kind of cases and the kind of support that we provide our clients. And lastly, I just want to say thank you all so much for listening to the presentation. I apologize if I spoke very, very quickly, but I'd like to just reiterate that we have 3 key contact avenues that I would definitely encourage to mention if you have been affected by anything I mentioned today, or if you feel in the future you may be a victim of Islamophobia, that being our contact number, which is 0203 904 6555, our email address, which is iru@mend.org.uk, and lastly, our report and incident, which you can find on the website at www.mend.org.uk/IRU. Thank you so much for listening. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair, Sister Umayya. Very interesting. Very interesting presentation, and good to see that a Muslim organization like MEND is being proactive and bringing solutions to the table. I've got a few questions that have come, inshallah, to me from some of our viewers, inshallah. I know, Ustad Mustafa, you're in a rush, so inshallah, let's address some of them with yourself. So one of the questions that has come to me is, one of the viewers is saying, you mentioned the definition of Islamophobia in terms of it being connected to some element of race or racism. The person is saying, that seems to be part of the problem, that we are making Islam a race when it's not a race. It's not a race issue, it's a faith issue. So does that definition become defunct? So Ustad Mustafa, any points on that, please, inshallah? Ustad Mustafa, are you with us? Okay, Sister Umay, any points on that for us, please?
Yes.
Yeah. So Mustafa, tafadhal, please.
Okay. So I just used the race thing when I spoke about structural Islamophobia, just to connect it to people's familiarity with the idea of institutional racism.
So your video's off, yeah? If you can put your video on, please.
Oh. Is it, yeah? So as I was saying, I only mentioned the race aspect for kind of linking people's or drawing people's attention to the greater issue when people think about racism, which is not just the kind of abuse that people face, but it's also the institutional racism that they face too. So I wanted to kind of put that as as an analogy to get people to think that the same thing with Islamophobia exists, that it's not just the obvious attacks that we see, but there's also a greater kind of issue of Islamophobia when it comes to things like workplace, as the sister mentioned, people not getting the promotions that they deserve, and so many more. So that's kind of why I mentioned it. And then I completely agree with the person who asked the question, because, for example, one of the things that we do when we do our presentations is ask a person if they were kind of in the street and somebody said, you know, go back to why don't you go back to Africa, you XYZ, that person would be legally, or would have committed a crime, because, as the person said, it's referring to race, and it would be a hate crime. But if somebody said, you Muslim, you know, and did the kind of abuse and said you Muslim, there is currently no law, or no, the person won't be held to account, because of this reason that the brother mentioned, that Islam is not, you know, one place. You can't trace it back to, you know, a geographical position on the planet. So lots of things go unreported or unrecorded as Islamophobic attacks. And one of the things, and this is where MEN comes in, because we are pushing to have that established, you know, to have a law that says if somebody does abuse a person and they do so with their religion, then that person should be charged and that person should be punished. So I hope that kind of addresses the question of the brother.
Jazakallah khair, Ustad Mustafa. So yeah. I think interesting discussion. Maybe we can have, you know, maybe needs another kind of like discussion in terms of, you know, we want Islam to be relevant in Britain, not as a race, but as a religion. And sometimes when people are saying, look, go back to where you come from, because they see Islam be connected to ethnicities and colors and certain countries. And I think that might be where that brother is trying to say, look, the definition, there might be a problem in that definition, which might need to be explored. But inshallah, at a later stage, inshallah. Sister Umayyah, Jazakallah khair for your presentation. Just a question from a viewer, I think maybe a sister, saying in terms of, do you think the approach to tackling Islamophobia, we are becoming, you know, victims, is too much of victimization rather than being proactive in addressing problems and issues? Any take on that, please?
I think that's a very good question. It really depends on the stance we take, and also it's one of the main reasons why I myself actually joined the Islamophobia response unit, because it's the idea that to acknowledge the fact that you may be a victim of Islamophobia should not be seen as a sign of weakness if you are taking the active steps to try and help yourself combat the discrimination you're facing. So the fact that we have something like the Islamophobia response unit shows that we aren't a race of oppression, but really we are a race that actively is fighting against oppression. So it's the idea of how do you stigmatize and how do you label this notion of victimization, and what do you do when you do feel like you're a victim? I hope that makes sense, and I answered the question in whatever way that I was most capable of answering.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Umayyah. Inshallah, there's a question for you, another question for you. I'll come back to that. I just want Tauseef Bhai, a question for you in terms of, the question is asking, you being a counselor, do you think for Muslims to be involved in politics and, you know, politically engaging can counter Islamophobia?
Answer is yes, and 100%. Yes, you have to be politically active. I mean, that's the only way forward we can challenge the things. Anything regards to Islamophobia or any kind of racism, we believe, are because of our color. Because Muslims sometimes face two kinds of racism. One, because of their color, because most of us from different backgrounds. And one, being a Muslim because we look like Muslim. So both things you can challenge if you are politically active. Anything to do with deprived people from deprived and working class background, people from different race and color, people from a different religion, if they think they want to have a society more equal on the basis of equality and fairness, they have to be politically active. That's the only way. They need to be seen there. They need to be there where the decision making is. They need to be there where the power is. They need to be when there is something happening locally, they need to be seen there. Yes, my message is that helps.
Jazakallah khair, Ustad Tauseef. I think the question maybe is trying to be a bit negative, but I will mention what he or she is stating. They're saying, look, Muslims have been councillors for many years. We have Muslim MPs. We have the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. He's a Muslim, but Islamophobia hasn't decreased. So what's the use of being politically engaged when really Islamophobia is increasing and nothing's really being done? Any points on that?
Okay. I mean, there are some issues in the world which cannot be, you say, it's not be eradicated. Islamophobia cannot be eradicated if there is some more councillors, if there are a couple of more MPs. Yes, but it will impact, I would say. Sadiq Khan was the person who challenged, actually. I mean, I may not agree politically. Sadiq Khan of my party, of course, I supported him in every single way to become on that position. But maybe you don't agree with most of his things. But he challenged the American president when he's here, and he said, well, he won't let me in America because I'm a Muslim. There are people are doing their things, but yes, sometimes when you are a public office holder, when you are in those positions, sometimes you need to talk a little bit careful because you are not representing. There's a no constitution. There's a no constituency in Britain where there's only Muslim voters. I mean, like where I represent the ward in Crofton Park, I have a 98% non-Muslim voter, I would say. So the people are there, they're representing a whole community. So they need to be a little bit careful what they say. But I assure you, people are in public office holders. The people are there sitting, they are doing whatever they can do. I mean, I can give a list of examples about what we are doing, what we are making impact on. And I mean, if someone wants to personally ask me, I'm happy to engage.
Barakallah feek, Ustad Tauseef.
Imam Shakeel.
Yes,
sorry.
Mustafa, go ahead.
Can I also just jump in here on that question? Because I also need to go, I'm really sorry. But, with this issue, and this is something that MEND is trying to, get involved with, we're really pushing for this, is the involvement and the contribution of the Muslims themselves. I think sometimes we misunderstand the role of the councillors, that they themselves have this huge responsibility that, once we have Brother Tauseef in there, khalas, everything's going to be sorted. We leave it down to him. But it really is about every single Muslim in the community. And it's really, really good for us to hear this today from people like our sister Umaid, and see the kind of success that they achieve when people come forward. I think Muslims in general, they feel disempowered, and this is where we play a role to kind of open our arms to you and say, please come. We've got this organization, we've got the IRU, mashallah, the Islamic Center in Lewisham is doing their job. We've got people in the council. We just need you guys to get involved. We want some more volunteers. I don't think people realized, but the IRU slide that had the 3 people on there, that is the complete team that we have in the IRU. There's no one else, and those great number of cases that are coming are being dealt by those 3 individuals. And as the questioner themselves admitted or said, that Islamophobia is rising, but we don't have many Muslims, doing the job, being out there on the ground, being involved. And this is how we can tackle the issue, by actually, the average Muslim themselves taking action, volunteering, learning about the issue, and not just, just leaving it down to the councillors. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I just want to thank you so much, Imam Shakeel. I really have to go, and I want to thank the people on the panel as well as the audience. Jazakumullah khair, and I hope that this continues and people benefit, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallah feek, Ustad Mustafa, for joining us. Inshallah, we appreciate that. May Allah Ta'ala put this on your mizan of hasanat, increase you and your family in khair, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Exactly. Brothers and sisters, I forgot to mention in the beginning, Sister Sakina Sheikh, she's a counselor in Lewisham Council. She emailed me and said she's got a double booking. She's unable to attend. And our brother Adel is a counselor in the Royal Borough of Greenwich. He had a car accident today, just texted me just before our conference today and our discussion today, and he apologizes as well. So apologies for that, inshallah. We do have quite a few questions, and I think Sister Umay, this is a question here where it says people usually do not report Islamophobia incidents as they feel nothing will happen. What is the outcome if we do not report an incident? Anything you can mention on that, please?
So just to clarify, are you saying that what would be the outcome if they don't report at all to the Islamophobia response unit?
It's like some people say, look, nothing's going to be done. Why do we report it? Yeah, okay. Nothing's going to happen. Everybody's against Muslims anyway. What's the use of it? That kind of negative, kind of like tone. Yeah, that's what I think we're going to.
So, with regards to the statistics, I think the statistics alone show the amount of reports that we get on a daily basis. And I think this idea of disillusionment and this idea that, oh, there's no point of doing anything is one of the main reasons why we are having this issue of tackling Islamophobia. And I think that with regard to the multiple cases that we receive, the fact that the IRU is the only body in the UK that provides a multidisciplinary support. So we not only provide free legal support, but we also give emotional support and signposting, is that we make sure that every single client that comes to us, we have an extensive procedure where every single case is dealt with to the extent that we can and the capacity that we can do within our remit. And then we'll signpost to clients to the most relevant services. So I think this idea of disillusionment, again, sometimes comes from a lack of education to know that there are actual people out there like the IRU who literally on a day-to-day basis, we actively support victims of Islamophobia. And I think if more people knew about us and knew about the kind of work that we entail, not only could we potentially have more volunteers, but people will actually be able to have a bit more of a taster to know that it's not a simple, no one's doing anything about it, but it could be more of the fact that no one knows what's actually happening in the back scene. So inshallah, if we get more awareness from that level, I feel like then we can maybe tackle this disillusionment that, there's no point of reporting.
Jazakallah khair. That's an interesting response. Another question here, and I think Tauseef just to maybe you can kind of like both give your input on it. The question is, should we discuss Islamophobia with our children? And if we do, how should we approach it? Yeah, do you think, we should kind of like, it's negative? Should they really know about it? What do you think, Ustad Tauseef?
Yes, I think it's important to tell our kids about Islamophobia, exist in the society, and have a conversation with them that if they find somewhere they felt discriminated, they felt like someone just made a comments which are not appropriate because of their religion or their ethnicity, they should come back and tell you, because kids can't report by themselves, so they need to engage with you. And that will, when they are growing as a child, when they're becoming an adult, that will stay with them that yes, there is something is not normal, and they don't need to be just live with it.
Jazakallah khair. Sister Umayya, anything on that?
Yeah, I think given the multiple cases that we get from the education sector, so we have had clients that are ranging from primary schools to universities to teachers even, and I think the level of education should be running obviously by different extents depending on the child's age, but I think having that conversation to know that if you feel that somebody made a remark regarding your religion, it shouldn't be something that should just be brushed away, because like Brother Tauseef said, it's the idea that children are like sponges, right? And if we don't allow children to understand the importance of respecting one another's religion, then what can happen is we can normalize these conversations, and actually it could cause a much more greater harm in the long run, because we'll build a society and we'll build a generation where people will just normalize having Islamophobia remarks, and that's how it penetrates to the workplace, because sometimes it's not tackled within the institution that we are built in from the get-go, which is schools.
Jazakallah khair. Do you think, Sister Umayya, we are maybe creating negativity. You know, children are innocent and pure. And maybe we're creating mistrust. Maybe we're creating hatred in them for others. And maybe we're creating negativity in them. And do you also think maybe there's a difference between, let's say, the age groups of children? We shouldn't really very early on start bringing up these negative issues, and maybe later on. I'm asking, I'm not saying that that's correct.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's why I mentioned earlier that there need to be very different extents that we provide this exposure. And a lot of times it is building this space for children to feel comfortable enough that they can go to their parents and they can say that, you know, if something happened in the playground, for example, like they've been bullied, or they've been said certain remarks and have been made to them about their religion or about their hijab or something like that, that we make sure that children are seen from the extent of their age, and then from there on we kind of determine how much exposure we should give. So it is something where we have to be very mindful, and it's not going to be a clear-cut policy. And regarding the idea that we have to make it a pessimistic ideology, that's not necessarily, for me personally, I don't think we necessarily have to approach it in a negative manner. I think celebrating Islam and celebrating the beauty of our religion is something that we should also share with other religions as well, so that it's not always a conversation to have with your child that, oh, you have to watch out for this, but rather you can share this about with your other non-Muslim peers. So it doesn't always have to be such a negative conversation to have, but rather we should try and instill this positivity that these children should celebrate their religion and celebrate their religious beliefs.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. I mean, that's interesting, and I think that's a good approach, you know, maybe from an angle of, look, be confident about your faith, be proud about your faith. So instill a positive angle into it, rather than maybe, you know, it's always about hate and us being targeted and so on. So good point. This again, Ustad Tauseef, and for Sister Umair, question here, it says, is there any way we as a community can educate non-Muslims about Islamophobia? And if so, how can we go about doing it? Ustad Tauseef, especially in your field as a counselor, are you doing that? Should more be done? And so on.
Yes, it is actually a very interesting thing. As I mentioned in my earlier talk, sometimes a simple talk can change people's mind. Just a simple open conversation. And also the mentality, some of our Muslim community people, they think, oh, nothing is going to change. Now, as someone just said, or do we report is going to change? Like, we shouldn't be hopeless that, oh, nothing is going to change. We need to engage. Second thing, we need to get out this us and them mentality. Oh, that we us and they are them. No, be part of society. You are here to live. You're not going anywhere. No matter whatever someone say, go home. We're not going home. This is our home. Yeah. So this is the thing. We need to be more multi-faith events, multicultural activities. I mean, with living in whatever our Islamic, boundaries are. I mean, we have a very fantastic event in Lewisham, as you are a very active part of it, multi-faith walk, which gives opportunity of people of all faith to visit your mosque, your church, your synagogue, to ask questions. Oh, how do you do that? How do you do? So that's what I say. Multi-faith engagement is the key, and we need to be more proactive in that. We need to have that proactive approach in it, and that would definitely help.
Jazakallah. Sister Umair, anything from yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, echoing Tauseef in the light that we do need to have more multi-faith engagement. We are very proud in the IRU to know that we have got our volunteer caseworkers that are Muslim and non-Muslim, and we also feel that in terms of the initiative that we can have, there's wider projects that we can get involved with. For example, in the NHS, in educational institutions, where we do have this project where we're just building a conversation, a dialogue between different faiths, so that we can have this understanding that it's, like, you know, Brother Tauseef said, it's not an us versus them mentality. It's actually more about how we can mobilize as one, really, rather than differentiating between the two.
Jazakallah khair. Sister Umair, this is a question from a sister. She's saying, what advice would you give a sister or sisters when they're outside and they face Islamophobia, such as name calling or taunts? What should they do?
So inshallah, I hope that the presentation did demonstrate and highlight the kind of avenues of support that we can provide. We understand that in the current climate, it is a very harrowing experience to be a victim of verbal abuse, especially as a sister, when you are by yourself or anything of that manner. but I hope that this presentation showed you that the kind of thing that you can do is definitely report the incident. One thing I would always tell sisters is, do not live in the shadow. Do not think that your case does not need to be heard. If anything, I would advise the complete opposite and use the contact details that we use today to know that there is somewhere like us here to support you.
Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, another question here. Again, I think both of you can answer this. It says, what if Islamophobia is making me anxious and leaving me not to want to leave my house? How do I fight these negative feelings? Ustad Tauseef, anything from yourself first?
I think in that case, that is very sad if some of our member of our community feel that way, that they are anxious and they just fear to go out. In that case, they need to engage us. That's why we are here as your local politician. They have to engage you as a leader of the community. They have to engage a community member and what actually fear them. Like, we are in position, I can talk to a borough commander of the Lewisham police directly. I can just say, listen, this is the issue, we need some force here or something. That's the way they need to be part of more actively in a community, and that's the what we need to maybe also responsibility of mosque or our community. We need to approach those people if we think someone is somehow suffering in silence. We need to identify those people and help them and stand with them.
Jazakallah khair, barakallah feek. Sister Umay, anything from yourself?
Yeah, I think to add that, I think people in the positions of power should make sure that they allow ordinary people to feel secure enough to leave their homes. Obviously, sometimes it can be a very internalized battle that people go through, but as well as that, it's the idea that if we have people who are meant to represent you and represent your best interests, then surely we need to make sure that we strengthen that communication and that trust in that relationship to help people feel more secure, so that they don't feel like they can't leave their homes.
Jazakallah khair. I don't want to sound this in a negative, patronizing way for especially that questioner there, but I think it's important that we, as Muslims, we have certain concepts of courage, certain concept of not fearing others, only fearing Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, a concept of brotherhood and sisterhood, meaning somebody should be able to approach another Muslim brother or sister, or even the mosque for support. So there are, principles and values that Allah has given us in our religion that really need to be applied, and no Muslim should be feeling worried to come out of, her house or his house and so on. We need to be confident individuals and proud individuals of our faith. And no one, whether it's an Islamophobe or not, should make us feel bad about our identity, our Islamic identity and Islamic faith, and so on. With that, inshallah, Ustad Tauseef, Jazakumullah khairan, inshallah. It's been very interesting discussion, and Ustad Mustafa that was here with us earlier on. Again, apologies for Sister Sakina and Brother Adel from Greenwich councillors that they weren't able to be with us. And a special thanks to also Sister Umayya, very interesting presentation and discussion and good answers to some of the queries and questions. Sister Umayya, I want to leave the last word with you in terms of how, because like I said, MEND is proactive. And this is what we need from Muslim organization in the UK. Everybody can complain and everybody can be an armchair critic, but the work needs to be done. Now, and this is a MEND initiative, the Islamophobia Awareness Month. So how can the Muslim community support MEND? And I want to, inshallah, leave that with you, inshallah, please.
So I hope in this next couple of events that we have this month, that you're able to get in touch and get involved with MEND through our various avenues that we will be mentioning and showcasing on our website, and also in terms of the IRU as well. The contact numbers are there if you are a victim of hate crime, but also alternatively, if you'd like to support and volunteer with us. We always have caseworkers that come in of legal and non-legal background, and we train them and we allow them to feel that they are actively giving back to their community. So if you do feel that after seeing, and please join our sessions as well. We have multiple events happening this month. So if you click on our website, click on our Facebook page, you by all means you'll be able to get a much more better exposure of what we do as an organization, and particularly for the IRU. If you want to support us, then definitely look onto our website, look into email us, or even give us a ring, and we'd be happy to onboard you and train you.
Jazakallah khairan. Brothers, sisters, thank you for your time, and hope inshallah you had a beneficial inshallah time in hearing the different speakers and views concerning Islamophobia. As Sister Umayya has mentioned, please inshallah get in touch with men, support men, and inshallah any problems that you have locally, then our brother Ustad Tauseef is a counselor. Speak to him. I'm here as Imam at Lewisham Islamic Center. Approach me inshallah and our team here. With that, inshallah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum.